So by you clicking this video, I'm going to assume that this advice is actually solicited, not unsolicited. Today, I'm going to be giving you advice on unsolicited advice. And really the purpose of this is to kind of shed some light on what it feels on both sides as the giver and the receiver. And by being able to understand both sides, hopefully inciting a bit of empathy so that we can better our relationships, whether it be romantic, platonic, professional, etc. So we'll start with this very first scenario, pretty common one. You're feeling really stressed out and you're just needing someone to vent to. You hit someone up in your support group and you ask them if it's okay for you to vent. And as you're telling them your story, what's going on in your life throughout your week, what's been really stressing you out, throughout the story, they're telling you things that you should do based on what's worked for them in the past. And in my experience, there are two possible outcomes here. Possible outcome number one is you feel cared for and relieved to be able to vent to this person and you are grateful for the advice that they've given you. And possible outcome number two, you don't feel like their suggestions really fit with your particular life and your scenario, and you feel that the delivery of the advice is a bit insensitive given the fact that they didn't gather all the information they could from you prior to giving that advice. Or maybe you already considered all the things that this person is suggesting, and really you weren't looking for advice in this scenario. You were just kind of looking for an empathetic ear or some words of encouragement. So I'm curious, what would your response be in this scenario? Do you lean more towards one possible outcome compared to the other? Is it really dependent on the situation? Maybe it's really context dependent, but moral of the story here is that we can't assume what one person wants based off of what we would want. We can't assume what one person would want, even if they typically want a certain thing. You know, we aren't mind readers, and both parties, both the venter and the listener, are able to verbalize this and able to do easy things to just prevent this miscommunication. So say me as a ventee, I'm perfectly capable of being like, hey, can I vent to you? And really, I'm just kind of looking for support right now in the form of listening, active listening, and maybe words of encouragement. And as a listener, the person that's being vented to, they can respond by asking before they give their piece is, hey, like, are you looking for advice? How can I best support you at this time? They can also ask if there is anything else that the venter would like to share. And I cover a bit more on that in an active listening video. If you're interested, I will put the link up. I'm pretty sure it's in this corner. And real quick, if you're enjoying this content and this video so far, would very much appreciate a thumbs up and hitting that bell notification button so that you don't miss any of my future videos. So scenario two, and this is something that I've come across and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, is that advice comes out of nowhere. So personal example, I was chatting with my boyfriend, which was then a friend, on the possibility of me going down to Vegas to do a little road trip to see all the national parks in the area once this whole pandemic thing is over. And there was really no natural segue into this part of the conversation, which turned into advice. But he responded with, well, I think you should actually focus on paying off all your student debt, and gave me some advice on how I could move forward in paying for a possible doctorate degree. My point of view in this scenario was like, WTF? Like, we were talking about travel, and how I responded, I tried not to have a very emotional response. What I said was, I'm sure you're just trying to help, but I didn't ask for your advice. Looking back, I felt belittled, I felt like I wasn't seen as an equal, that I was seen like I was struggling so much financially that I just needed this advice that I didn't ask for. And after talking with him, his point of view was he wanted to see if we were on the same page about money, which is a factor that he finds really important in relationships, and seeing if we were compatible in that respect. So I told him, after learning that, another way that would have been more effective, at least for me, being on the receiving end of that, would be like hey, what do you think of this? So sort of fostering more of a discussion rather than like a form of testing. And frankly, it was more of a like blunt delivery of advice. On the topic of delivery of advice is very important. Me personally, I know that I will never know the full context of the situation. I will never know the full context of this person's life, their background, their thought processes, their value systems, and just like I will never know everything that's going on. I will never understand the full picture. So I feel like I can never comfortably say, you got to do this. Another way of framing advice is to say, this is what's worked for me, maybe it could work for you, or this is something for you to consider. And just having those words there shows that you respect this person and their life and their ability to make the right decisions for themselves. So what can we learn from these two scenarios? So we've talked about how we can't assume what another person wants. We're not mind readers. But the core takeaway of this lesson is to see if this works for you, is that in order to foster more supportive, healthy relationships, we need to encourage more open dialogue about where we're at, what we're needing, and how we can best be supported. Because as the giver of advice, you don't want to feel like, the energy that you've used to listen to this person and to show that you care by giving them something that can help their situation better. You don't want to feel like that advice is, not really appreciated, or the person you're giving your advice to is, upset, although you were just trying to help them. And B, as a receiver, you don't want to be viewed as inadequate. You want to feel respected and heard. So in sum, being able to truly express how you're feeling and opening up that dialogue of what is needed, where your headspace is at, can prevent both of these negative feelings as the receiver or the giver of unsolicited advice. Prevent those negative feelings from happening. So that is this video. I hope you found it helpful. Again, I would very much appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. If you did, it helps the channel, my small channel. So small. My small channel. I was trying to be a thick channel someday. But yeah, and hit that subscribe buttons if you want to see more of this mug. Talk about feelings and such, relationships, people things, human experiences. That's your thing. So with that, I'll see you next time. Bye. Take care.